Hey guys, I just want to say congratulations for getting this far through the course. We're almost done here, but for these last two lessons, we're going to be going over something that I don't know if it should be in an intro course because it's kind of complex, but this is just kind of like a couple of bonus episodes just so you can get an idea of classes and objects. So these next two tutorials will deal with, working with classes. So, classes never have to be used. They are never required to solve a problem, but they are very useful for when other people are reading your code. As your code gets more complex and your scripts get longer, it's very important to have your code organized so other people can read it and use your code. So, we're going to go through an example of making a class for an enemy, just like in a video game or something along those lines. So, we'll just step through that as an example. So to define a class, we begin by saying class, and then we say the name of the class. And I'm going to say enemy. And then we put these empty parentheses and a colon. And for right now, just never put anything in these parentheses. You'll see why much down the line, but for now, just leave them blank. So we'll start off by defining some variables that belong to our enemy. So I'm going to say our attack is 20, our health is 100. And we'll leave it at that for now. And then I'll define some functions. So I'm going to say, I'll say enemy attack, just to make everything really clear. So this will just print, I'm attacking. Yeah, we'll just leave it at that. So then we'll make another one called enemy damage. So this will be when the enemy takes damage, they'll say ow. Okay, so good enough. So you'll often hear that classes are described as blueprints for objects. So following the blueprint you define in your class, you create objects from that. So we'll do that now. So objects are really just like any other variable, and we define them the same way. So I'm going to say ogre, and that is equal to enemy. So what this is saying is, look at my enemy class, and then make an object of it called ogre. And now that I have this object, I can read its information. So I can say print ogre dot attack. So this dot is what allows me to read from this blueprint. So basically, when ogre was created, it copied all this information into ogre. Now I'm getting the information out of ogre. So when I run this, I get 20. So if we wanted to use one of these functions, we could do it in a similar way. Instead of saying ogre.attack, we say ogre.the name of our function. So let's call enemy attack, and we put the empty parentheses just like any other function call. And when we run this, we're going to get an error. And it says enemy attack takes 0 positional arguments. And I'll scoot this over, but 1 was given. So here's a weird thing about classes. So when you define functions in a class, the first thing you always have to do is write self as the first parameter of each function. So this is pretty complicated, but the short version is this self variable refers to our current object. So right here in our ogre object, self is equal to ogre. So I know that might not make a lot of sense. For right now, you can just always remember to type self at the beginning. So now when we run this, we can see two things print out. I'm attacking gets printed out because we called enemy attack. And the reason we see none here is because we're trying to print this function, but this function doesn't return anything, so there's just literally nothing to print out. Which is why you see none. So that's not very important. If that's confusing to you, we can just delete this print statement, and when we run it, we'll just see I'm attacking, considering that the print statement is in this function we're calling. So the last thing I'll do is I'll show you how to say I'm attacking for 20 damage because our attack is 20. So what I'll say is I'm attacking for, and then I want to say plus the string version, or the string equivalent of attack. And then I'll say damage. Okay, so that's looking good. I'm attacking for 20 damage. So when we run this, we get an error. So it says attack is not defined. And the reason why is because Python doesn't really know what attack we're referring to. We have to explicitly tell it we're referring to the attack in our current class. So the way you do that is you say self.attack. So again, kind of weird. It is something you can just memorize. I memorized it for my first few years of programming. But saying self.attack means look at the attack variable in my current class. My current class is enemy. So look at enemy.attack, and that is 20. So now I should be able to run this. And down here, you can see I'm attacking for 20 damage. So that's the basics of classes. I'm not going to get too in-depth with this, but I do think this was a good survey to it. We're almost done with this series, guys. I'll see you in the last one. Thanks for watching.